The anime begins by showing us a peculiar story where a god created the earth and also humans. But with them he also decided to create witches who had the duty of controlling the powerless humans, something that the witches themselves did not hesitate to accept, promising to go for it. Beautiful path of caring for and guiding humans, but in the present the humans hunt the witches, completely hanging him with the beginning of the story. But well, let's continue now. We see our protagonists in a dry desert, a little witch's apprentice named Adonis who was trying to convince his witch teacher named Chloe to let him lead them since he has a powerful tracking device similar to a smartphone, but this only makes Chloe upset since they are fleeing and she believes that it is a spell which he could use to track them, and as a consequence, he eliminated them both. But the little grandpa only continued to boast about his intellect, since he himself created an artifact which does not need magic to work. It cannot be tracked and is not at all useless, like those silly old paper maps that she uses, something that ended up angering her teacher, who gave her a good couple of blows to make her respect, but this did not make him reflect, rather it made him angry. Jay continued wondering why they are the ones who have to flee from humans when they could always live in peace and harmony, but Chloe seemed not to be angry at all, saying that this is life and that their situation simply changed, so they should continue moving forward and maybe now they could change their profession, saying that maybe they could become stealthy ninjas. But this did not calm Donnie, so she promised him that soon they would be better, and they continued walking while they talked about how soon they will find a place where they let the witches live and maybe they can find a school for Donnie's. And Chloe took the opportunity to bother him by telling him that there will surely be cute girls, but Addis didn't want to go to school but rather continue training with her, so his teacher bothered him more since she believed that her young perverted student liked older women, which he immediately denied. They continued walking, but Donnie's couldn't believe that after everything that is happening to them, their teacher acts with complete calm and harmony when she should be very stressed, but she shows her sweetest and kindest side to all this. Adani's hatred of humans only seemed to grow, but in the middle of the on the way, a police squad called the Eastern Squad began to patrol the area in search of remaining witches, so our protagonist would be in trouble. So Donis was about to defend himself, but his brave teacher decided to take care of them with a strong ice spell. Humans who chased them, and in a quick change of scenes we see the king of the empire of Ridaya, who is called Gauthi, and was calling his subordinates useless, but one of them began to defend himself, saying that the witch they are looking for, called Chloe, is one of the most powerful, not to mention that ice is his specialty, but talking so much cost him dearly, earning him a good kick in the face for defying his majesty, who was about to ask to be executed. But catching Chloe was his highest priority, so he ordered to go for her again, and this time she did not fail in the attempt. Returning to the protagonists, her teacher easily managed to destroy the entire squad, but her young disciple did not understand why they forbade him to fight, since according to him, he is very good with magic. But his teacher knew that he still lacks a lot of experience, and he did not want to make him get hurt. But in the middle of his talk, a gigantic sword fell from the sky, which was the power of Adonis, but his teacher would not tolerate hearing it, ending the talk. Although Adonis did know the reason why which they forbade him to fight, and it is because he is a human, and surely Chloe does not want him to eliminate his own race. But the boy only asked her to trust him more, since he cannot tolerate sitting idly and wants to protect her with all his strength. Earning a very strong hug from his teacher, who understood the feelings of her young disciple, but for his bad luck one of the suits that Chloe frozen still worked, and it sent all the location data of our protagonists, ending in a teleportation spell, which surely he would take them with the humans passing to the city. A message was sent to the population, which was the Emperor Gauthi Queen. That day he did not speak to them as their king, but as a simple human who gave a speech despising the witches, since he did not care. It seemed fair that they were so weak while the witches were so powerful, and he did not like the idea of having to depend on them to help him with simple things that currently, with their large ships and strong concrete cities, they can do equally or better without counting all the news, such as trains and smartphones. Finally saying that due to their great ingenuity they should be the most fit to live in that world, and asking that any witch be handed over immediately for a quick execution. But that was not all, since at the end of his speech both Chloe and Addis were teleported in front of the emperor, who had very bad intentions. But Adonis, upon quickly reading the situation, decided to attack Gauthi, but his security managed to catch the little boy, which Chloe did not like at all, who threatened to freeze everything if not. They released his apprentice, and seeing that they would not do so, he decided to use his ice magic to eliminate them all due to how dangerous they had become. But to his surprise, his ice magic did not work, nor did Adonis's, who was trying to write on the ground. To try to invoke his magic, which did not work either, since the humans created a powerful magic blocker, and His Majesty approached Chloe to undress her and beat her, humiliating me that he would eliminate them. And upon hearing these words, the king himself ordered that he be eliminated. But Chloe, in his last attempt to protect the only thing she knelt before the king, lying to him, telling him that she stole that child and raised him as a slave. So she brainwashed him into believing that he is one of them, although he is just a simple human, which should, if he was forgiven. Adonis understood what his teacher wanted to achieve, but he did not want to accept it, so he continued in vain trying to write hieroglyphs to invoke some magic, but to add luck nothing would be useful, and the emperor would end his life. While they both remembered the first time they met and how good they felt with each other, and in her last words Chloe thanked her disciple for everything, while a strong scene permeated the eyes of our protagonist. To top it off, a group of the army would make sure to eliminate her completely, finishing off from a distance. While all this is happening, we see short scenes of both of them and all the time they spent together, and finally, as if that were not enough, the emperor ordered one of his servants to cut off the witch's head to have I remember the occasion, all while Adonis saw how the only person who stayed with him had been eliminated in the worst possible way, completely filling himself with hatred for all of humanity, which despite being his race had caused him great trauma. 10 years since the tragedy, and now we see a couple of prisoners who were fighting quite badly over a ration of bread, but a shy girl named Doroka asked them to stop fighting, and in exchange she would give them their bread, which confused the prisoners, but still thus. One of them took the bread in a very bad way, and one of the prisoners named Anna approached Doroka, questioning if it is really okay for her to give her bread again, since the last few times she also gave food to other prisoners, which she stated, since according to his own words, had plenty of energy. But the blue girl could only envy his calm and kindness, since if he goes outside he will only find a horrendous war fighting for other territories, and remembering how they were deceived by saying that if they extinguished the Buru everyone would improve, but it only got worse in wars with each other, fighting for territories and food. But Doroka asked him to calm down by showing him a puppet which represented a king and the other a maiden, simulating a silly conversation where he recounts his reality, telling that the empire he brought them to that prison and they don't even know why, they are simply quite scared. All of this to cheer up their scared friend Anna, who succumbed to Doroka's nonsense, managing to brighten up a little the bad time they were experiencing. But the bad news is just they seem to be coming, because soon one of the guards came asking for prisoner number 218. Then a couple of prisoners were murmuring that lately the girls who leave there never come back, and this will be the 4th time they ask for a prisoner, and we quickly see that Anna it is number 218, something that terrified her, since she would surely not breathe again if they took her away. But Doroka was able to quickly read the situation and bravely took her friend's number to replace it with her own and practically be the bait, thus saving her friend, who did not understand why she gave herself up for her, leaving her digital number and her 2 puppets with Anna. Now we went to see where they took her, where a strange man could see that she was in good health and also seemed quite sane. So the head of the guards, called Parolu, who looked like he crossed paths for a while, asked her to undress, which is a basic routine since they must make sure that she does not carry any type of weapon or anything dangerous on her body, because lately they had problems of that kind. Our strange friend explained to Doroka that that place is paid for with people's taxes. So now she would be useful to the guards by also showing us how the rest of the women ended up, who were fainted from so much abuse. Doroka alone, she seemed to be shocked while listening to Parolu, who said that it was not her fault after all. Her industrial revolt was stupid, and it is normal for things to happen like what is about to happen to her, so they ask her to get used to it while he gets used to it. He took a photo with his new pet, which he would not use for his personal benefit, since seeing how beautiful it is would be better for him to sell it to a high command, so he continued taking photos since surely someone would buy it at a very good price. But Doroka, being in that horrendous situation, she bit him out of sync, managing to flee the room while Parolu ordered her to be captured. Although upon noticing that something was missing, we see that the skillful girl not only managed to escape but also stole her smartphone, in which while she was being chased he was able to find an option where he could open all the cells immediately, and the young girl while running asked him to release all the prisoners, but for his bad luck a voice authentication code was needed, which would be difficult to obtain, and no matter how many attempts he made he couldn't, but he imitated the voice of the degenerate. So his phone accepted the voice confirmation without hesitation, managing to free all the cells and shouting at all of them to flee immediately, but since there were too many of them, the police couldn't handle them all. But looking for a golden exit, he ended up in a strange room where one of the policemen jumped to catch her since she should not be in that place and she had given the order to release all the prisoners, so they tried to close all the cells immediately, but it was too late and the smartphone had ordered a massive liberation, so the metal shell in front of it began to open, showing us a captured human who looked quite dangerous, but upon hearing so much noise he understood that the day of his liberation had finally arrived, who with a traumatized eye he saw who had captured him, but at that moment nothing prevented him from remaining their prisoner, managing to destroy the chains that held everything back, while the frightened police officers who called him prisoner 100 wanted to inform headquarters but knew that if they did that he would surely hang them alive, so they chose to put him back in his cell using weapons, all while Daroka saw such a young man who looked like nothing more than a traumatized boy who immediately attacked a guard, defeating him and stabbing his own weapon in the neck so that the next one would take a knife in the middle of the forehead, so the last guard would not survive, so he decided to use his weapon, but it was of no use since this prisoner was vastly superior to them. But Daroka gathered her strength to try to talk to him, although the boy quickly approached with a gun to point at her and shoot her, but not at her but at the spies who were surprising Daroka since she only decided to flee the place, but this would not go unnoticed, so all the prison guards were ordered to immediately finish him off. Dangerous prisoner 100. Even if they had to use extreme force, everything would be valid, but to record the situation, this problem was reported to the high executor called Yamato, who was the director of the prisons, who upon knowing who the prisoner in question was gave permission to use weapons class C or higher in case they have problems capturing 2001. Next to him was the deputy director of the prisons called Yuki, who ordered a soldier not to dare to fail in his mission since he could eliminate him, but the smiling soldier did not seem to fear his words, withdrawing and saying yes to everything, which made Yuki angry since a soldier should be much more serious. But Yamato asked his sister to calm down because he knew that that smiling boy called out his somewhat strange name was someone who was too strong, since even he had the same executor rank as them, and he began to activate his combat suit to start having fun, but returning to the pressure. Palp was surprised since even the warehouse of confiscated objects was open, so they had most likely been looted by the girl who stole his cell phone, but still Palp couldn't believe that they had taken the weapon of prisoner 1001 who had a double rank to save his teacher, and now this memory was nothing more than sad, but it still seemed to work quite well since when he activated it he was able to use a magical formulation which he called Game to enhance one of his bullets that he had stolen from the prison, managing to make it giant. So when he saw that his magic was working, a very traumatized Adonis swore that that day he would eliminate every living being in that horrendous city. But in the prison we see that the executioner with the strange name, which we will call out, had already eliminated all the prisoners. None of them gave him the information he wanted, but at that moment he was informed that he was using magic but to shoot buildings. Therefore, outstated that he would go in a second, but not before eliminating those who could not complete a simple job by shooting mercilessly. Somewhere outside the city, a sad Daroka lamented what had happened, because if she had stopped that mysterious boy, surely none of that would be happening. But Adonis at that moment was camouflaged among the population where the news reported about the strange bullet that had passed through him. A building. All of this made Donnie Solo remember his teacher, who he is sure that if she were alive she would scold him, saying that revenge would not bring her back to life and that if she could escape she should live her life in peace, but still this one does not. He could contain all his hatred, which he remembered that 10 years had passed since the horrendous events that occurred where his teacher pronounced her last words, saying that she loved him, and quickly a sea of red bathed his memories, so Adonis would do what his broken heart told him to do, invoking its powerful magic, the same one that brought a great monster that was as tall as those buildings with Adonis as its leader. But in the midst of this disaster the police seemed to have many prank calls, since they could not believe that a giant is attacking the city. But when they saw that a car crashed in their offices and when they saw the man in the accident, they went out for a walk outside and were able to confirm that they were not a dream or special effects. They were really being attacked by an attack titan which was destroying everything in its path without no matter what human gets hurt in the middle of the road. But Gothi was his true objective, so going to his castle was his goal. which apparently Yamato's force already knew where the situation was heading, and to protect both the king and the Yamato society quickly requested a state of emergency where all the military infantry should be present immediately. But when they went out to the roof, they quickly saw the Titan, which they did not know if they could stop, but upon noticing that it was something so big it could not be possible, Yuki detected that the magic was responsible for making it work, so Yamato ordered his sister to use the magic nullification device that they used 10 years ago, because now is when they need it the most, which Yuki had no problem accepting. But while everyone in the city, they seemed terrified. A large number of soldiers with large tanks were sent to the front row to try to take down the robot. Although unfortunately the shots seemed to go to other places. So a second round of shots was fired, but still the shots seemed to deviate from what we see. That Adonis was responsible for affecting gravity in the entire area, managing to deflect and eliminate all the force in less than a second, giving us to understand that the 10 years he was a prisoner did not use in vain, but rather he began to simulate multiple options in his mind. Spells and, more importantly, multiple ways to eliminate and massacre and make suffer those who once took everything in their world in front of their eyes. That is, from humanity. So using magical formulas which were at a completely different level, they could eliminate everything in his path, since after all he was a man with nothing to lose, full of hatred. So he quickly summoned large machine guns to finally be even with a nation that took away what he loved so much, firing all the ammunition possible against those defenseless people till he only stopped when he saw nothing move, filling himself with pride but with tears in his eyes, although he didn't know why he was crying after all. It was supposed to be what he wanted most. His long-awaited revenge against those who did him so much harm. But in this confusing moment the prow was found by Echo, who was reporting Donis's location, so Yamato was immediately able to inform all the air troops of the whereabouts of his attacker, asking for an immediate elimination since he was an apprentice who was quickly going to become a danger if they were not able to stop him. But to their bad luck some missiles had located him and had him in their sights, so with permission to use all the military fire some planes were sent at that moment, and a poor boy who had lost his mother would soon lose her life, but a kind and very hasty Jiroka was able to save him. But due to the situation she had to leave him with a lady who was there to ask them to calm down, since she would try to stop the protagonist who had survived the entire bombing. Just passing by with the Gothy king, who was Otis's target, he was wondering why there was so much noise outside, but his wife, who I don't know how she stays so young, asked him not to worry, after all his kingdom would take care of everything now. That he is very bad and must rest. But Gothy only seemed to get worse since he had acquired an incurable illness, thinking that perhaps a god beyond his understanding had taken it upon himself to give him what he deserved. But even if that were the case, he would never regret it after all. He only did what was best for the people, creating a civilization which was based on technology, eliminating all witches for the sake of progress, ensuring that without people like him they could never have evolved as much. But in the middle of all his words we see Donis the witch eliminated everyone who tried to stop him, reaching a point where even with all its technology, the barracks where General Yamato was found lost total contact with the suspect, who had a soldier around his neck who was only insulting him, assuring that they should have taken care of him a long time ago, just as they did with his horrendous teacher, words with which Adonis agreed, since now it was going to be the end of his entire kingdom. But before ending the soldier's life with a punch, we see Jiroka, who finally finds the Prota to ask him to stop, and although he did not know her, he recognized her as the prisoner who had managed to free him. So Jiroka again asked him to leave the place. After all, he had already eliminated many citizens of the empire, so it was not fair at all. He could even see that innocent people were suffering in the collapses. These simple and powerful words managed to make Adonis' face fill with hatred, squeezing the soldier's neck so much that he managed to crush him without further problems, something that impressed Jiroka in a bad way, wondering how could have been so evil. But Otis began to get angrier, as she couldn't believe that there were people who believed that the members of that city could be called innocent, beginning to believe that perhaps all the humans on that planet are as stupid as her, who was imprisoned by those of his city, so perhaps eliminating everyone on the planet is the best thing that could happen to them. And Jiroka tried to calm him down by telling him that Chloe Morgan or his teacher wouldn't have wanted him to do this, and although he wanted to quite a bit, it wasn't the right thing to do. She did, but Adonis would not allow her to mention his name. After all, she is a simple prisoner who knew nothing about him and was surely sent by the capital to buy some time and capture him. He already knows how dirty they play, remembering how the police treated them once they turned off all their magical powers to make them go through living hell. But Daroka began to calm him down, saying that Adonis was a beautiful man given to him by a very proud teacher, and confessing that she is also a witch, showing a little of her power, which impressed him. To Adonis, who released her from the impression, so the girl wanted to introduce herself properly, but before pronouncing her name again, the Pruta held her tightly, asking for an explanation immediately, since there is not supposed to be any witch alive, believing that he is a dirty trick. But Daroka could claim that it is one, since she confessed the witch's code, but she was not going to let go of Adonis because she did not ask him for another explanation of why they did not go to help their teacher when they needed her most. But Daroka only apologized, saying that they were all too scared, running away and hiding. But to calm the upset boy, she told him that her teacher would revive or they would do it together. So she managed to be released to be able to explain herself better, revealing that she is already an infiltrator who had the duty to release everything. To be able to use her power and revive Chloe, since she is her teacher asking her for her power. But Adonis did not seem to be completely upset, invoking a sword, assuring that he will eliminate her immediately and then everyone in that city. But Daroka, seeing that she could not changing the boy's ideas, he accepted his inevitable end with a big smile, which made the young apprentice remember his teacher's last expression before being sent to San Pedro, managing to collapse immediately from so much accumulated sadness, asking her to please not lie to him anymore. He seriously wants to bring his teacher back and saying that he is going to trust her. So Daroka finally sees how worried the boy is and decides to shake his hand and take him with her. But at that moment a bullet would pass through the body of Daroka, being Akut, the person responsible, who was somewhat sad since his plan was to eliminate two birds with one stone, but unfortunately he could only eliminate one quickly. They show us a sore Mua Daroka, who when she woke up was in the city to the witches, but very badly injured, observing the day where the nation attacked all the witches, so one of her friends could only hug her to try to calm her down. But still Daroka wanted to know the reason why the humans started attacking them, although Mia said she didn't know the reason. After everything, both sides always got along well, not to mention that recently a group of them went to heal their emperor, but due to the severity of his wounds, Daroka wanted to use some magic to minimally defend her people, which I knew wouldn't work since the humans had devised a powerful machine that nullifies magic, so they should look for Ophelia, their wife, to know what to do. But Mia knew that they both couldn't do it. So she asked her to run as fast as possible since she couldn't accompany her after everything, had a very strong wound on her back. But this did not matter to the almost witch, who only asked Daroka to go for Ophelia following the Star of Revelation, since it would help her identify her weapon. But to calm the horrendous situation a little bit, Mia grabbed a puppet on the ground to simulate a Tondo knight who told Daroka what to do. After all, she was a brave girl who would accomplish her mission. But the moment Daroka quickly ran away, a group of humans surrounded Mia to give her the final blow, all with a characteristic sound that would be recorded in Daroka, and the same sound as the one that she just heard in the present, but with her being the target, which would end up with a severe wound, being on the verge of the afterlife. But Doni could only be surprised. And although I didn't know her very much, I wanted to save her. After all, Daroka knew the way to resurrect her teacher. Then Daroka revealed a big secret that impressed Donis again. It quickly ended because they had been located. And although Donis was not hurt, poor Daroka received all of them. The impacts being like this on the day of his death, and the protagonist seeing the girl who had just given him hope of recovering Chloe, his teacher. This opportunity ended up completely ruined by no one other than humans, which made Donis even more angry. And although the officers wanted to eliminate him, and even Akut was more than confident, our protagonist would not give up just because, taking out his powerful magic wand to invoke a powerful spell. And although the officers fired all their bullets at the boy, none of them could directly affect him, which is what Captain Yamato did. To worry, since a witcher in modern times could mean the end of his civilization, especially when he was able to catch each and every one of those bullets to freeze his time and return it to him by getting rid of the entire Special Forces platoon. simply leaving his captain and a prepared Iku who had him in his sights from a tall building, but once in his sights the bullet was fired going directly through Adonis's forehead, although to everyone's surprise it failed to hit because Adonis stopped his time to enlarge his size, and why not give it back to him who shot it? But even someone like Ikkad couldn't stop the attack of a powerful magician, since it was too much for him to simply leave. Half of our special agent queen was no longer a problem for Adonis, but there was still the special forces general who could do nothing but stay on the ground in terror, while an angry Adonis swore that he would eliminate all the humans in the territory to avenge his fallen master. For what Yamato, while watching on the cameras of security, gave the order to her sister to activate the dam, a device that Yuki had on her forehead, and she couldn't believe that they had something so incredible, but today she would be the one who would be useful, asking them to turn it on immediately. But for her bad luck, a group of scientists said that they would know that they would come. However, when they saw that they had in front of them one of the 4 national agencies of the entire Ridaya Empire which focused on the science of that world, but the professor said she was the director of science. He gave the bad news to Yuki since they could not allow them to turn it on, which made Yuki put on alert, quickly asking for an immediate explanation. A call came to Yamato from Samansa to be able to explain his reasons, the main one being that science is a beacon that illuminates humanity, and although they deciphered much of this world, there are still mysteries that do not. So one of the reasons for not turning on the device is cellular dysfunction, which Yamato remembered being the worst disease that soldiers developed when they faced the witches, where some upon returning to their homes simply stopped living due to a severe illness. Even others in the middle of celebration parties began to have severe internal bleeding. Then Samantha revealed that the magic nullifying device was responsible for all those casualties in the cells from humans, something that they clearly hid by orders of their king. But currently, where there are no witches to help recover the environment, not to mention that all the current pollution has meant that they do not have the most optimal of atmospheres, it has made their world as in decay. And if the weapon were turned on today, without taking into account the problems already mentioned, they could eradicate all of humanity, since its atmosphere would not eliminate anti-magic molecules as before. And although he is its king in the past, he proudly mentions such a weapon in the present. We see the consequences of its use, where even someone with money like Gothi could not find a cure for his illness generated by the anti-magic device. With this said, Yamato did not know what to do. After all, bullets were his best weapon and they didn't seem to affect Donnie, so a sad Yuki decided not to listen to them to forcefully turn on the machine. After all, she remembered her brother's words where he said he trusted her, but Samansa quickly asked to evacuate in the building while she would try stop Yuki, something he could not do in time, managing to turn on the weapon, cancelling Adonis's magic. And although it was quite effective, in that sense we can see how Samansa and Yuki's body looked when they were close to the weapon, suffering the effects of cell elimination. But seeing that what was done, Samansa asked him to at least finish off the enemy, so Yamato quickly ordered the elimination of Donnie's. Although one soldier approached ahead of the others and seemed to be very angry, or more so than the rest due to all the people that he eliminated, but quickly his entire platoon asked him to retreat since a building was falling on him, but it was too late and he fell, leaving Adonis against the soldier, who took out the edge of his weapon to personally take care of Adonis by cutting his head, immediately ending the strong threat that almost destroyed humanity, managing to deliver it to his platoon, quickly cheering both the force and the other members in the command center, which quickly asked them to recover the magician's body and help save everyone. The civilians, since they were the most affected by all the damage. But although Yamato did not recognize the soldier who eliminated the magician, he knew that he should be rewarded, although before that he had to contact the director Samansa, who was with Yuki and wanted to talk to them immediately. But when he saw the head of the wizard Yamato, he could only feel pride in his nation, although this was not free or easy, since even the director of science and her sister had to sacrifice themselves to win the battle. While the Regati gave a speech where he apologized for what happened, stated that they only tried to keep him alive since they believed that since he was a human they could reason with him, so that he would give them the formula of how a human could use magic. But as we already saw, the price of having him alive was too high, leaving thousands of casualties. For their bad actions, Gothi still told his people that they were the pinnacle of the world, the best of the best, due to their great technological advance, not to mention the incredible military force that supports them, which fills the souls of all its inhabitants with pride. So with this he puts an end to the old world of magic, wherein this new world technology will be as new magic, but this message was being broadcast live where everyone could hear the words of their king, even in the schools where the teachers noticed that many classmates had died. Yet they wanted the students to be calm since tomorrow the national exams would begin where they had to pass yes or yes, so they would be lucky before the end of the class. But one student wanted to know why a human would have died. Alloyed with the which, after all he was human and having magic, he could have taught them, but his teacher had no answer to such a question. Although it was most likely a brainwashing, but the class was ending and one of the students seemed to be affected by what happened, watching the table to her right which had a flower. Since that student there was, but quickly a classmate began to bother the girl, swearing that she saw what she did, blaming it for what happened, but the student only said to do what was necessary to survive. These cold words made let the girl finish the conversation. Although later the same student returned to see all the fallen to leave some flowers for her friend named Takuma, who must surely have hated her. So in her memories we see what happened, where a large piece of rubble had hit her, crushed, and although he asked for help, Eri, or the girl we see, could only run from the place without helping, giving his partner, who could only shout at him without believing that the girl who once confessed all her love for him was fleeing the place, while the giant that Adonis she controlled him. She crushed him, ending his life, but the present was hard on her. She couldn't believe that her boyfriend was really dead, and when she reviewed the photos of the person responsible for all this, she simply couldn't stop seeing them, because deep down she found him very attractive and great. But at that moment a guy who works for the government managed to catch her, so she knew she should delete the photos, but he was very nice because he let her keep them, seeing that she seemed to like them, but as long as she doesn't pass them on no one, because he is the worst criminal that city had. Something that Eri accepted, apologizing immediately and asking permission to leave, although for obvious reasons he ran. Then the white-haired boy from the government did not hesitate to call his superiors to ask that they catch him as soon as possible, after, of all things, the magician probably brainwashed him, since it is an act of betrayal. So a police officer came back with him saying that they finished checking the entire area. This because the person who was the director of the intelligence agency was his duty to inspect. So he was lucky to find this girl with photos of the magician. But at the end of the call he blew a kiss to his worker, who warned him that if he continued doing that he would not work for them again. After all, the pay is not that good. And her researcher from the intelligence center, who said she found a problem, so perhaps a girl who took a couple of photos of the magician should not be her priority, but finding the real body of the magician, since according to her investigations the body of the boy what they have is nothing more than a copy. So that threatens the kingdom. It has not ended, something we confirmed when we saw Adonis wake up as if with nothing.